Hi, good morning. We're so glad that you're with us. We have a really exciting story for you today. Like I told you, we're going through some of mine and Kelly's favorite stories. We've talked about Daniel and the lion's den, and we talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You've learned about people who've had great faith and who showed their faith to other people because they just only did what God said. And we want to be people like them. Today you're going to learn a fun story about someone who tried to do like Colt and run away. And sometimes we don't want to do what God says. Well, that's what our character today did. And Miss Kelly's going to bring you a wonderful story. But before that, let's sing a fun song about him. And I'm sure you all know this song. Are you ready? Let's sing about Jonah. All right. Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Up. Ooh, who did? The fish did swallow Jonah. Fish did swallow Jonah. Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Up. All right, guys, let's do it one more time. And I want you to be really loud. And we're going to sing all out Jonah. And then we're going to go to our lesson. You ready? One more time. Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Up. The fish did swallow Jonah. Fish did swallow Jonah. Who did swallow Jonah? Who did swallow Jonah? Up. All right, let's go hear our story. And Miss Kelly is going to teach us a new memory verse. And I'll see you next week.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a great week. I hope you are having a great Sunday morning. I'm so glad to be back with you this week. We are talking about some of these big characters in the Old Testament, the ones that we've heard about. Some of them we are very familiar with, but we're just going to kind of rewind and review and revisit some of these people that we can really learn some really great lessons from. 2 weeks ago, we talked about Daniel in the lion's den and how he trusted and obeyed God. And last week, you talked about, with Miss Anna, you learned about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and how, the faith that they had to get into that fiery furnace and how God saved them. And this week, we are going to talk about one of my other favorites, about a man who was told by God to do something and he didn't obey. And so sometimes we have things that we know that God wants us to do and we don't always obey God. And so this is a really great lesson for us to learn from a man named Jonah. Say his name with me, Jonah. Now Jonah, just like Daniel, has a whole book of the Bible that is about his life and the times that he was living in. And so God told Jonah to go to the city of Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a town that the people there were not obeying God. They were not worshiping God. They were not following God's will. And God wanted Jonah to go to Nineveh to preach to the people of Nineveh. But Jonah knew how wicked the people were in Nineveh. And so instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah paid to get on a boat that was going to a town called Tarshish. It's kind of hard to say. So instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah got on a boat going to Tarshish. He was running away from God and what God wanted for him. Now, let's stop. Do you really think that Jonah was going to be able to hide from God on this boat? Remember, God is everywhere. He sees everything. He knows everything. So he knew what Jonah was doing. So Jonah gets on the boat and he starts to sail across the sea where he thought God could not find him. But we know that God could find him. And a big storm came while he was on this boat. and the seas were wild and they were waving, and it was very, very dangerous. And the men on the boat with Jonah were very afraid. They thought they were going to die. And so after they started talking and saying, "Why is this happening?" Jonah said, "It's me. God has sent this because I did not obey. You need to throw me overboard into the sea." So the men, they were so afraid that they were going to die, they threw Jonah off of the boat into the sea so that the waves would calm down. Now, when Jonah was thrown into the sea, the most amazing thing happened. A great big fish swallowed Jonah up. Now, Jonah did not die. He was in the belly of that fish for 3 days. 3 days. And in that belly of the fish, he prayed to God. And he was so sad and so sorry that he had not obeyed God's commands. And so, after 3 days, the fish spit Jonah out onto the land, the beach. And God came to Jonah again and told him to go to Nineveh and preach the will of God. And this time, Jonah obeyed. And because Jonah was so brave and he did follow God's will and he did preach the will of God to the people of Nineveh, they changed their ways. They turned their hearts back to God. Now, this is a fantastic story because only God could make these things happen. So we're going to do a quick review, and then we're going to talk about our memory verse. Now, where did God tell Jonah to go? Nineveh. Say that town with me. Nineveh. He wanted him to preach there because the people were so wicked. But instead, he got on a boat that was headed to, now this word's kind of hard to say, Tarshish. Say that with me. Tarshish. That's where he was headed. But while he was on the boat, a storm came, and he told the people to throw him overboard into the sea. And when they did that, what happened to Jonah? Did he die in the sea? No, he did not. He was swallowed up into the belly of a big fish. Now, some people think it was a whale. It might have been a whale, but the Bible tells us it was a big fish. So, probably not a whale, just a really large fish, big enough for to swallow Jonah and keep him in his belly. And after how many days did Jonah stay in that fish? 3 days. And on that third day, he was spit out onto the land. And then God told him again to go where? Where was he supposed to go? Nineveh, to preach the will of God. And he did, and the people obeyed. Now, I am going to give you our memory verse for, now, we don't usually have a memory verse that has the word vomit in it, but we are going to have a memory verse today that says vomit. Okay, so here we go. In Jonah chapter 2 and verse 10, it says, "And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land." So this verse tells us that, first of all, God was in control of the situation. God commanded the fish to spit Jonah out onto the land. Second of all, God saved Jonah. He spared his life even though he had been disobedient, and he was spit out onto the land and given another chance to obey God. I love this story. I love Jonah. I love him because a lot of times we don't always follow directions the first time, but we need to be reminded that God is in control and he does want us to obey. But we should always obey God, and he will protect us. I hope you have a great week, and I can't wait to be back with you next week.
Hope that y'all are ready for a fun little craft. This does not take very long, and all you need is a piece of paper and a pen or a marker, and we are going to make a fish. Do you see this? That swallowed Jonah. Do you see that he's in the middle? Okay, I'm going to teach y'all how to do this. Doesn't take very long. All right. You're going to start, and I'm going to draw it on this. You're going to start by drawing your fish, and you want him to be very long for this to work. So make his tail somewhere at the bottom, okay? And you're gonna make his mouth open at the top, and then you're gonna have to go way down, because remember, we're gonna have to make it close. So way down, go back over, up, all right, and then to his tail. Okay, now he's gonna look a little funky, and you can play with it, do it a couple of times. That's what I like to do. Draw his teeth, okay? You can do this on blue paper and it looked like the ocean, but I wanted to make sure that you could see him really well. You can draw a person, and I'm really bad at drawing people, which is why I made my Jonah a stick person, okay? But you could add some hair to him, whatever you would like. You could have the water rushing in the mouth. You could have a couple of fish getting caught also. So you can make this scene really fun, and you can add an eye to your fish. You could also add fish scales. So you can make this fish look like however you would like. You can color it, decorate it, all of the above. But this is all you are drawing, okay? It's nothing major. And the way that you get your fish to close its mouth and swallow Jonah is pretty simple, okay? You are just going to fold your paper where the teeth are. Okay, you're just folding. Same thing here, just fold where the teeth are. No. It's okay if you don't make it straight, because I made this one crooked. Okay, and then just fold it. Oops, hang on. Fold it over and fold it over, just like that. Just get it closed. So the fish looks a lot smaller before he swallows Jonah. So go ahead and send these in to us. Let us see your creations, and I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Thank you.